Hello, I'm Dick Cheshire, Chairman of the Promise America Alliance, and we're bringing you a series of videos about the work and philosophy that our nonprofit organization has been doing and the steps forward we're working with to deal with the current crises being faced by all of us. This includes a new formula and practice to enable taking the best steps forward for we the people, here and abroad, and for the planet itself that connects us to a future of infinite potential. Today, I'd like to discuss the leadership formula that I've been developing over a long career of leadership positions and in helping others that can galvanize a way for us to come together to agree upon actions we want to have happen and to get those actions realized. We are challenged by today's events to change the way we think and do leadership. There is a simpler way to succeed. We can discover it with a quick check of history that connects us to the future of infinite potential. To do that, we will need to accept how a famous formula of creativity can lead us to an equation of human relationships that can be the most powerful leadership force on earth and a simpler way to our mutual future. 3,000 years ago, according to the story of Exodus, Moses the shepherd met the booming voice of God the Creator on Mount Sinai, who said, I am is my name forever. The voice demanded that Moses tell the Pharaoh that God wants him to let my people go. This is where the Creator's leadership was clearly asserted in order to free the Israelite slaves of Egypt to escape for a promised land of milk and honey. It was 400 years ago that Descartes, the scholar, affirmed that I think, therefore I am. If we can think, he imagined, that will help us lead to what we can be. By accepting this, the leadership of reality can be considered in all its potentials. But first, we must start with ourselves on our way to sharing with others. 100 years ago, Albert Einstein, the physicist, discovered the universal law of creativity, summed up in the world's most famous equation, E equals mc squared, in which the energy equals mass times the velocity of light squared. Or, reversing this, mass times the velocity of light squared is the equivalent of the energy it possesses. So, there is an enormous store of energy in any given substance of mass when that mass is tapped. This framing of creativity is the heart and the soul of leadership when it is actively working. 60 years ago, Martin Buber, the philosopher, explained the difference between an observer of separated things, I and it, and an observer of relational beings, I and thou. Leadership in relationships with others forges our direction of the future. Our faith in humans as relational beings is the path maker. 15 years ago, the physics professor and leading author Brian Greene spoke the truth of E equals mc squared when he wrote a New York Times op-ed on the 100th anniversary of E equals mc squared by saying, quote, "There is nothing you can do, not a thought you can have, move you can make that doesn't tap into E equals mc squared. Einstein's equation," he went on, "is constantly at work, providing an unseen hand that shapes the world into its familiar form." Without saying so, these words encompass the most dedicated leadership that influences what we do, what we think, and what moves we actually can make. E equals mc squared is, therefore, the prime formula for creativity in the world. It's where the simpler way starts. Creative energy builds critical mass into a chain reaction moving at the velocity of light squared. It's where everything in the world begins and leads, from the Big Bang to the Earth and its people. No exceptions. Both material objects as things and all humanity as beings are created by the E equals mc squared process. Leadership depends on that. This formula has been repeatedly confirmed for the world of material objects. Now, there is a derivative of this formula that can be applied to human beings, who are themselves physical as well as non-physical. As the future of the world in micro or macro is becoming more influenced by humanity as beings vis-a-vis things, creativity has become central to the leadership of all people in all ways. Now it's time to apply energy, mass, and light to the impetus of leadership in order to more effectively transform the actions of individual people into the momentum of a unified group. This then translates into a simple leadership formula: I equals AM squared. Impetus equals action times the momentum squared. This synchronicity of realities, from the I am of God to the I am of a person and the I and thou of all people, then interconnecting with the E equals mc squared of everything and the I equals AM squared of everyone, that can be recognized as one unified system that makes the world go round. How can we best take advantage of that? This reveals a unity of leadership that lies quietly waiting to be discovered where we haven't found it yet, to help meet the necessities of the world which demand it. Viral leadership, we'll call it, is more confident, more compelling, and quicker, which is now an urgency of our future if we are to have one as a global civilization. For example, the corona pandemic, which is now sweeping America and the world, demands the leading attention of all people according to their personal and public responsibilities. It begs for leadership in our country and the world. because all of us are leaders of ourselves and others with whom we have influential connections. We must decide how best we can most effectively address our responsibilities for overcoming the raging pandemic. So, if we consider America as one nation among many, and if we accept our influential international role over the past 75 years since World War II, what can we do with our leadership to help the changing world as we help ourselves? We can turn to a simpler way that traces the fundamentals of Mother Nature via E equals mc squared, such as physics, biology, and chemistry, that evolve into human nature via the organizational DNA or ODNA of body, mind, and spirit that comprise a present state of being, and leading to our social nature via a new leadership ethic that is largely built upon economics, psychology, and ethics. Above all, we need leadership for all. How can we simplify leadership to overtake our harmful viral connections? A simpler way for us all to consider is to accept responsibility for our future. To do this as a nation, or better still, as a partnership of nations, we need to re-engage the first principles of our nation as we know them, while including the individual and global interests of partnering nations as we develop these principles together. American leadership plays a unique role in the world because of who we are and have been, that takes us directly to our Constitution and its preamble, where we find America's fundamental purpose. That is, the first principles that frame our rule of law and the creativity of our leadership. Here are its words. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. As America's fundamental purpose, informally assumed until President Truman's 1951 formal declaration, which was intended to upgrade our pursuit of a successful Cold War against the Soviet Union. The preamble introduces the articles and amendments of the Constitution as the law of our land. In it, we'll find our prime mission, defined as the impetus of leadership, our grand strategy to lead the actions of people as individuals, and the basis of our creative leadership as a nation at home and in the world. America's leadership has the responsibility to look after that as its number one task. What are the components then of this public policy? We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, is defined by our freedom as individuals and their responsibility for the common good. Their leadership is entrusted with our chartered principles, so that in all ways they reflect their relationship with the people and the Union as one body politic. Our body politic requires a representative Republican democracy that enables a one person, one vote system of elections that addresses our concerns about gerrymandering of voting districts, campaign financing that favors moneyed interests, and threats to our security and our accessibility of voting itself. This is where our creativity manifests itself through the universality of the E equals MC square formula. The pillars of establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare are altogether our grand strategy. They were meant to lead to individual and social justice under law, ensure equal protection and equal opportunity, provide for national security, and promote the well-being of all citizens. This is where the association of people manifests itself through the organizational DNA, or ODNA, nucleus of America. Equal justice under law is the motto overlooking the front entrance of the U.S. Supreme Court building in Washington. Domestic tranquility is intended to foster internal peace and goodwill in the towns and cities of America. The common defense is associated with protecting and defending the country from external attacks. And the general welfare embraces all American citizens. The core of America's creative leadership as one people in a diverse nature, in a diverse nation, consists of liberty, posterity, the Constitution, and America itself. These are basic. They are the components and the outcomes of the promises America's founders made to the people who would follow them as the rising generations of the future. They would be the cornerstones of America's strength to come and its role to play in a world then ruled by monarchies. This is where the ethic of leadership is rooted in the Constitution itself, because the heart of the American experiment has always been creativity. We must go back to the naturalized American born in Germany, Albert Einstein, who featured creativity in his investigations of how the world works through the formula E equals mc square and the so-called theory of relativity that he believed to be a theory of unchanging relationships, quite the opposite of it all depends. They would be the relationships of energy, mass, and light, which now, in this recreation, becomes the impetus of leadership that transforms the actions of individual people into the sustainable momentum of a universe, of a unified group, I equals AM square. Call it our theory of relationships, the simpler way to our plans as we envision them. This impetus of leadership is akin to Marshall McLuhan's "The medium is the massage." The message, as he saw it, is the massage, which reflects the transmissions of different media most often in play. The message that transforms human feelings by the nature and power of its effects on the receiver. As received, the message is the impetus that drives the influence to a common goal. The power of these effects becomes the message that produces its reactions. In any case, the message which transmits arises through the massage, and the massage is the simpler way for our tunnel vision to make its way forward. The actions of individual people who are receiving a compelling message must become actions that causes them to be engaged in a coherent strategy that propels the message forward that is being conveyed by leadership. Such a strategy will steer the action around or through the obstacles, depending upon its strengths and weaknesses, in order to generate the required momentum of sustainability. The momentum, then, in I equal AM squares formula must be great enough to sustain the impetus and action required for a common goal shared by all assets of leadership, from height to depth, and in the process, no matter how long it takes, that creative organizational process is always driven, nuclearized, and accelerated as ODNA. That's organizational DNA, by those who are part of the leadership, from first to foremost, throughout the ranks of participation, according to the I equals AM square formulation. This three-part foundation or formulation captures the creative energy that undergirds the impetus of leadership in such ways that compel the attention of prospective leaders who might take the wheel of the engine and drive the message forward to friends, associates, and the public at large. As these folks receive and consider the message, they will in some degree be moved to action that massages their interests and that of others. As this occurs, the actions of these individuals builds a center of gravity that is strategic and in position to become a critical mass. As the critical mass is more strategically tuned and a base of followers is more clearly increasing, the reality of momentum becomes more of a force that is consequential. For this to happen, a critical mass must cross a tipping point, such as boiling water turning into steam, or as freezing water turning into ice. The tipping point is reached when, where, and how the process of developmental change is ready to occur. Crossing the tipping point produces a chain reaction of momentum at a pace determined by its sustainability of ongoing leadership impetus. This, of course, is the desired result so often difficult, if not impossible, to achieve. Therefore, it's a discipline to be respected and observed. I equals AM square functions then as the technology of leadership applied to the digital age in which we live and work. It works as the simplified architecture of a digitally networked system. Its systemic derivatives are articulated according to their functionality as parts of a whole working together. The role of leadership, then, is to see and understand the system and its reality, to realize how well the system is working, and to assess what assets and deficiencies need special attention. In order to do that, special measures are necessary to produce metrics that capture the realities at work. Then to be decided is what factors paint an authentic picture of the direction in which the status quo is moving, because it never stands still, and what other factors are playing in a role of strength or weakness in each case as it arises. And this is how a leadership formula travels from creativity to conclusion in a simpler way to reach our goals.